Now, just to recap, we are going to be using the keyword extends to inherit a class, and the general syntax is going to be child class extends parent class, or subclass extends superclass. So let's see some coding examples and apply inheritance in there. What I have right here is I have a class, I called it person. You see the package inheritance because I placed in a package called inheritance, and you can do this by simply right clicking the source and then going to new package, and this is going to order your Java files, but then you will need to import some of them. We will see all of that in this example. Now what I have here is a class called person having two attributes, first name, last name, and then I just had a constructor that's going to set the first name and last name, and a simple void method that's called getInfo. Now what I have in mind in terms of a structure is a person can be a student or an employee. An employee can be a regular employee or a manager. So let's try to build that structure. Now, if a student is a person, that means a student is going to take all of those features. So I need a class called student that is going to inherit this class. So let's go ahead and create that. I'll go to my package, new class, and I'll call this student. I don't need a main method for that, and I will just finish it. So now I have this student class. What I need to do is I need to inherit the person class. So I'll say extends and then person. Now I'll get an error here because this is going to ask me to create a constructor, but we will create that constructor and that error is going to go away. Now I need to create my constructor, but first let me see if I need some of the variables. So I'll create a string for student ID. And the reason is I want to have letters in there. That's why I have it as a string. And then I'll create a string for major. So string major. Now notice that I didn't add any encapsulation in there, so I'll go back and edit the encapsulation. Even here I don't have any encapsulation, so I can make them public, I can make them private, and the advantage of making them private over public is not all classes will be able to access them. So this is the only class that's going to be able to access them if I make it private. But I need to be able to access those directly without setters and getters from student class. So what we will use is protected. So protected is going to allow me to access this attribute from this class and every other class that inherits this class. And I will do the same here, although I can just make those private in the case of this specific class because I'm not planning on inheriting this class by other classes, but I will just leave it as protected. Now I need to create my constructor for this class, so it's going to be public student. Now keep in mind that although I have only two attributes in here, this class in fact has 4 attributes. What are the other 2? Remember, we're extending person, so we have those 2. So I'll just place them in a comment just to remind us that we have first name and last name from person class. We also have the getInfo method. Now in my constructor I need to have those in there, so I'll say string first name and another string last name, and then I need to define the other 2, which are string student ID, and let me have another string for major. Okay. Now let me define those in there, but I need to pass values for the first name and last name from this class to the person class. Remember, when we want to use the anything from the super class, we use the keyword super. Now in the constructor, the super call has to be the first thing in your constructor. So I'll say super, and then I will pass it the first name and last name. Why am I passing them in this order? Because if we go back, the order is first name, then last name. So you need to pass them in the same order of the parent's constructor. So I will pass first name and last name. Now there is gone, but I need to finish doing this. So I'll say this dot, and then see, I have first name and last name because I already get them from person, but then I need to define those. So this dot student ID is equal to student ID, and then I will also say this dot major is equal to major. Now I finished writing my constructor. So again, I already have my get info in there, but let me show you something. I can just go ahead and use a getter for the name. So let me say something like public string get first name. Now I can go ahead right away and I say return first name. Where am I getting first name? I didn't even define it in here. I'm getting it from the superclass, which is person. Now I also have access to get info, so anything in person I already have access to. Let me just define a method here. So public void, let's call this do tasks. And then I'll just say print something, a message like the student is studying, or like, let's just put the name of the student. First name plus, and then is studying. Now this is an example of a student class that extends person class. Now in the next video I will continue on developing the rest of the structure.